I connected with this month's interviewees a couple of years ago, and it's been a long time coming trying to get them slated for an interview. They wanted to make sure that their first book, The Bohemian Trials, was in publication. So let me introduce Chess and Gwen to you.
All right. Well, Chess, Gwen, thank you for joining me on the show. It's a pleasure to have you guys. How you doing today?
Good.
Good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. So, tell me about what you work on and what you guys have created.
We are creators of our own dystopian graphic novel series with just a splash of horror. It's called The Bohemian Trials. We also refer to it as an American manga to better depict the stylistic direction of the art and story.
And also, I think to better explain, I'm Chess and she's Gwen, and I'm the author of the Bohemian Trials, and she is the illustrator. To give like a quick little pitch, we took a really brutally honest take on superhumans, is kind of how we like to say it, because we're firm believers that if there were some select people that had superhero abilities and the rest of the world didn't, the rest of the world wouldn't really like that and would do their best to suppress it due to fear, envy, pure hatred, whatever that be. And that's what is going on in our universe. 15% of the global population are behemoths, which is the term for superhumans in our universe, so very negative connotation. It's set in an LA Big Brother's Always Watching locale, so lots of propaganda plastered everywhere, a lot of rampant crime, whole shebang. And we follow our leading lady, Lyra Reese. She is very morally bent. Her codes that she goes by is very impartial and strict. And so she sees everything going on in her city and nothing really being done about it. And so she has her vigilante team, and they go and take matters into their own hands under the cover of night, but not with flashy masks and colorful tights, but rather paper bags for their masks and pajama pants. They're counterintuitively protecting the people that seek to suppress them and breaking the law to prevent further law from being broken, all in the name of just doing what's right. But of course, that only sets the stage because the horror aspect has to come in. But that's the opening 2 pages of our book for volume 1, so we don't want to spoil those things. And we like to leave people in the unknown so they can enjoy the book.
How did you guys get into creating a graphic novel? Because I mean, Chess, you're obviously a writer. Like, what was the process? Like, were you always set to start that kind of a process, or did you start with doing more like a narrative structure and then you wanted to go into that artistic realm?
So, for one, I've known I've wanted to be a writer since I was like 13. And I remember pitching that to my parents, and I was so nervous, but they've been 100% supportive of that decision and direction. And at that point, I had written like 200 plus pages of a really not planned out novel, and it's 13-year-old me, so the writing's not at all good. That will never see the light of day. But so I was on track for going full regular prose. That's always been what I was into and things like that. But for the graphic novel thing, I mean, it all started with the fact that my sister's a phenomenal artist. I'll always be her number one fan, and she was just doodling away what's now the leading 6 members of the team, and she was just sketching for the past time. And I had come to her room the next day because she's my sister and we're under the same roof at this point in time. And I was like, here's their names, here's their abilities, here's their personalities. And Gwen didn't fully agree with all my personality decisions at first, but now she is. Now she does. But like, I just had this whole universe built off of a drawing she made, and it kind of took her aback at first. But that's definitely what pushed us in the direction. I think Gwen has a little more on her end, though.
When I was in 4th grade, like I've always wanted to make comics since I was young. I remember like in the 4th grade bringing these papers like kind of just stuck together, showing my teacher like, look, I made a comic. But like definitely as I got older, like manga kind of became the more prevalent one just because it's could get darker and grittier and it really just fits more. But as Cheslin mentioned, it wasn't until I was 14 where I drew the first set of characters, which ironically is now our main 6. But Izzy was the very first, and we've like worked on the story ever since. And it wasn't until 2022 when we met our mentors who work in the comic book industry, and I believe that's like really when God really solidified for us, like this is His plan for us. He wants us here, and like He's even used our work to work on ourselves and like reflect on ourselves. So yeah.
Obviously, manga is a huge inspiration for both of you. But what are some of the other inspirations that you picked from when you were working on a project like this?
So we were both raised on comics, but funnily enough, neither one of us like really got into X-Men. The one that I was raised on was old school Batman's Adventures, Detectives, and the Dark Knight series. And I think it's just because those really were darker stories. Even as a kid, I was like, these are so cool. But yeah, those are the ones that really inspired me, I think.
I was the Marvel kid between the two of us, so my dad got the whole range of DC Marvel through the by us two kids. But I was a huge Spider-Man kid growing up, but I think the biggest inspiration from specifically that part of my life would be the Kraven's Last Hunt arc from the Amazing Spider-Man. That was like my first dark comic that I think I really got to read, and I just loved how heavy the themes were and things like that. And I was like, "Ooh, I want to go down this direction if I become a writer." But obviously, the comics and manga, like Attack on Titan's another big one. But like obviously, those are big influences. But I'd say on the literary side of things, I mean, my what got me into reading and writing was I picked up my first Nancy Drew novel at like 10 years old, and that was what set me down the path that I went. And then I got super deep into dystopian, probably influenced the genre we chose, by like junior high and all the way through high school. I was obsessed with like Hunger Games all the way to 1984. So the full range. But those definitely, I think, pushed us in at least for me, pushed me in the direction for the writing and the genre. Those inspired me the most, probably.
What have been some of the challenges that you guys have faced in the creation of the Bohemian Trials?
Well, I know for one, I think one of the biggest ones was the fact, I mean, we're sisters, so there was that having to find that business partner sibling balance. And that did take the whole time we made the book to really hone in on how to function that way, especially that first year of working on the book. It was a little tough. We knew going into this we didn't want like work life to bleed into personal life and vice versa. Like if we're having a work argument and things are just tense, I don't want it to make me tense with her on a regular basis. This is my sister. Yeah, that definitely proved to be a challenge, and I think it was because we had to learn to trust each other on a way different level than familial.
There was also though some physical challenges. I think that this was kind of the first challenge that I like had to go through, honestly, before even like learning to work with each other. And it was like right when we met our mentors, I got diagnosed with a variant of carpal tunnel. And the doctors had me on splints and they're like, you gotta stop wearing them once the pain subsides. Probably will take like 2 weeks. It turned into 2 to 3 months. But what was crazy was right when I got back to work, my art just improved insanely. It was like the first time really learning, like, okay, God's timing. It's not always going to be in your hands. You can't really choose. But as for other challenges, like Cheslin said, there were quite a few. But I mean, we lost so many pages because my tablet would crash, licensing problems with fonts, like resizing pages multiple times, finding a printing place that doesn't take IP, which is huge. And then like Cheslin's pages would crash, but we had literally problems all the way up to book drop night because our website wasn't cooperating with us that night. So, but it's all definitely been worth a while. Like it's all been worth it, and it's been a massive learning lesson. So, Lord willing, volume 2 will be a lot more smooth sailing.
That brings me to my next question. If you had any advice for other would-be authors, artists, or graphic novelists, what would you say to them?
I think I have two big advice, and I think that the first one is, and I think it's the greatest lesson, is don't put so much pressure on yourself with work deadlines. Like you will say, I will be done with this, and then something completely out of your control will happen, and you will feel defeated, but it's like you don't have control over it. And I truly believe that like it's all depends on God's timing, and it will be perfect by the time you're done with it. Like it may take so long, and it may take many, many, many mental breakdowns before you see the progress from like where you started, and you may want to cry, or you may be so tired that you can't even cry because it's been so long. But like it's definitely worth it, and you're not alone if you feel that pressure, but there's no point in putting so much pressure on yourself. And then the other thing I think is one thing that's a pretty common question is where do you start, or like where do I start if I want to do this? And I think that a lot of people, it sounds so stupid, but just doing it, you won't ever feel like you're doing the work that you want until you're done and be like, wow, I guess I just did it. Because we've gone through this, and I feel like even drawing pages for volume 2, I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing.
For advice, I feel like one, but this also comes into just the experience of working with my sister, but just in general too, not just if you're working with somebody you know, but that work-life balance is so important. It's so easy, especially with this kind of stuff, you're working from home most of the time. It's so easy to get yourself stuck at your desk way longer than you ought. The sun rises and you're there, and then it sets and you're still there, and then it's about to rise again and you're still there. And so I put so much pressure on, I mean, emphasis on the fact that, like, really working to maintain a healthy work-life balance is what's going to keep you functioning as an author and illustrator. And then also the big one, going off of like pretty much the last question, what we were talking about with the struggles and things, is like, do not let naysayers stop you from pursuing what you want, like your passion and your dream of becoming an author or an illustrator.
Well, we're coming up to the end of the interview. How can viewers connect with the two of you, and how can they get copies of your work?
So we've got all kinds of ways to get a hold of us. One, we have a plethora of social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Most active on Instagram, I do have to be honest about that. Everything is at Chess and Gwen. And then everything's at the Bohemian Trials minus Twitter. That one's just Bohemian Trials because it's not enough characters space. But you can also get a hold of us, and all these things are linked also through our website. That's chessandgwen.com and also the bohemiantrials.com, but really chessandgwen.com is the predominant website because Bohemian Trials is just explaining the series and the project and what's there. But chessandgwen.com is also where you can get a hold of the book because we have an online shop there. So just chessandgwen.com/shop is where you can purchase a copy. But if you want to curb shipping costs, then you can also catch us at an event, which we are always posting on.
Well, Chess, Gwen, thank you for being on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you guys.
Thank
you
you.
for
You
having
as well.
us.
It's been great.
Yeah.
A big thank you to Chess and Gwen for being the May Author Awareness interviewees. Now, if you'd like to connect with them or get copies of the Bohemian Trials, you can find those links down in the video description. You can also catch the unedited version of this conversation through my support page on Patreon.